Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a pretty wild idea from a text that really makes you rethink, well, everything. It suggests that one single change could help solve some of our biggest crises, from loneliness to economic turmoil. So where does this all start? It all kicks off with this simple but really powerful thought experiment. Just imagine, for a second, a world with no waiting rooms, no trying to get an appointment, a world where help comes to you before you even know you have a problem. I mean, what if a doctor showing up at your door wasn't for an emergency, but was just a normal part of life?
And it doesn't just stop with doctors. The idea gets bigger. What if lawyers made house calls to sort out little issues before they became massive lawsuits? What if police officers visited homes just to build relationships, maybe preventing crime from ever happening? If teachers visited, would tutoring even be a thing? If a gardener stopped by, would any yard be bare? You see, it's a vision of a society that gets ahead of problems instead of just reacting to them.
Okay, so to really get why this idea is so huge, we got to look at how the source sees our world right now. Let's dive into the diagnosis of our current reality, a world that's defined by the lack of these personal visits. According to this text, our modern way of doing things has created something called ideal idleness. Without those natural, everyday interactions, like someone knocking on your door to provide a service, we've all just retreated into our own little bubbles. And the result of that? Well, as the author puts it, almost zero socialization, no civilian life. The very fabric of community, of just knowing and helping each other, has started to wear thin. And that void, that's where bigger problems start to grow.
So what's causing all this? What's the real root of this breakdown? Well, from this perspective, it's not about bad people or not having enough money. The problem is built in. It's baked right into the design of our systems.
And this is where we get this amazing phrase, offside and offices. It perfectly describes a system where all the experts and officials are kind of stuck in their centralized buildings, totally separate from the people they're supposed to be helping. It creates these massive gaps, not just physically, but psychologically. It's like they're playing on a completely different field than the rest of us.
And what's so interesting about this contrast is how it lays everything out. On one hand, you've got our current setup, the office-based system. It's seen as impersonal, creating all these gaps and loopholes where things like corruption and inequality can just fester. It turns us, the public, into passive customers. But on the other hand, a home-based system is all about that personal touch. It encourages us to get involved and, in theory, heals the community from the ground up.
And this is a really key point, so listen up. The argument isn't that modern medicine is bad or that our services are worthless, not at all. It's that the way we get them, impersonal, far away, stuck in an office, is what's fundamentally broken. That human touch, as the source calls it, has gone missing. Okay, so if the big problem is a failure of delivery, then the solution is, well, it's pretty straightforward, but man, is it ambitious. The text lays out a complete overhaul, a practical blueprint for a whole new society that's built on one thing, home delivery. So the whole thing starts pretty small and simple. First up, you bring basic preventative healthcare to every single door. Simple stuff, regular checks for blood pressure, sugar levels, things like that. Then, you use that same delivery network to supply generic essentials like medicine and food, super cheap, by cutting out all the brand and marketing costs. And from there, you could expand the model to cover basically everything: legal help, education, even fresh produce straight from the farm. And here's the real heart of it. This isn't just about making life more convenient. The ultimate goal is to create what's called a practical sense of equality. We're not talking about some abstract idea of equality you read about in a law book. This is about real, tangible equality you can see and feel every single day. When every single home, no matter how rich or poor, gets the same basic visit and the same basic service, it fundamentally changes the social dynamic. All right, but this isn't just a list of things to do. There's a whole philosophy underpinning it all, one that the author apparently developed over decades. So let's just briefly touch on the theory that's driving this whole idea. The author calls the framework for all these ideas Philselfology. It's described as a kind of practical philosophy that came out of 40 years of personal research and self-study. So this is the unique lens being used to analyze the problem and build the solution. Then there's this other key idea, cymatics.
Here, it's defined as the principle of turning potential energy into useful work. Think of it like the engine for this whole system. Instead of just letting all that energy, all those people and resources just sit around in offices, cymatics is the force that says, nope. Get out there, knock on every door, and put that potential to work. So if we actually did all this, what would really change? Well, according to this vision, the ripple effects would be massive. It would directly address the people and the problems that our current way of doing things often leaves behind. The thinking here is that the folks who get hit the hardest by our offside and offices world are the ones who can't easily get to those big central buildings. The elderly, the disabled, the unemployed, people who are struggling with addiction or their mental health. The author even includes people who are often just labeled antisocial, suggesting that maybe their behavior is really just a cry for connection and services that never ever reach their home. Makes you think, doesn't it? And get this. The idea is that this one single change could be a silver bullet for our biggest global problems. You'd cut down on corruption because you're closing that gap between officials and citizens. You tackle inequality head-on by making sure everyone gets a basic level of service. You'd fight back against social isolation with every single house call. The knock-on effects for the economy and even for reducing violence, as envisioned here, are just huge. When you strip it all away, it really comes down to this one simple but pretty profound idea. It's about a fundamental shift in what we value. Instead of looking up to big, faceless institutions, we should focus our gratitude and our respect on the simple, human act of delivery, on the person, whoever they are, that shows up at our door to help. And that kind of leaves us with a huge question, right? In a world that's always searching for the next complex, high-tech solution, could the most powerful answer be something way, way simpler? Is it possible that the future we really need is one built on rediscovering the power of a knock on the door, and in doing that, rediscovering each other?